Welcome to our Latinx career panel, or should I say Latinx alumni career panel because these are all alumni of the college. So I'm gonna start off by introducing each one of our four panelists and reading a small bio. So first up is Alendi Vidal. I hope I'm saying that right. So she is a native New Yorker who grew up in the East Harlem community, who witnessed firsthand the inequalities within the education system. This fueled her work in access to higher education, youth development, and advocacy. For the past 8 years, she has worked in the field of college access, where she has developed a curriculum for students and parents in early college awareness, supported students through their college process, and organized events to expose students to post-secondary options. Her current role serves as the director of college counseling College Bound Initiative at a public high school in the Bronx, New York, through the Student Leadership Network. Prior to this role, she worked as a senior educational counselor at New Settlement Apartments College Access Center. Additionally, she worked abroad in Cuernavaca, Mexico for the Center for Global Education upon graduating college. Alendi holds a master's in social work from Silberman School of Schoolwork at CUNY Hunter College with a focus in organizational management and leadership and a BA in Latin American and Spanish studies from Gettysburg College. In her spare time, she enjoys exploring New York City for new places to eat and binge watch TV shows. Next up, we have Gabriela Gaona-Patterson. She graduated from Gettysburg College in 2011, then attended seminary school in Princeton, New Jersey, where she earned her master's in divinity in 2014. She is currently a financial aid loan coordinator at McMurray University, located in Abilene. Am I saying that right? Abilene? Yes.
Yeah, Abilene.
Abilene. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
Abilene,
okay.
Texas.
I am not offended.
So next we have Jill Westerberg. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Born in Bogota, Colombia, Ms. Westerberg grew up in New Jersey and attended Gettysburg College from 2006 to 2010. She moved to Queens for law school in 2012. Admitted as an attorney in New Jersey and in New York, Ms. Westerberg spent years fighting for the immigration and LGBTQ communities at a nonprofit organization in New York City. She is now in private practice in New Brunswick, New Jersey, focusing on assisting clients in asylum applications, special immigrant juvenile status petitions, and appellate litigation. Ms. Westerberg is a proud member of the Hispanic Bar Association of New Jersey and a former officer on the board of directors of the Puerto Rican Bar Association of New York. She also serves on the Military and Veterans Law section of the New Jersey State Bar Association. Lastly, we have Miranda Johnson. Miranda graduated class of 2015 and is the office manager for Cancer Support Community Pasadena, a nonprofit located in Pasadena, California, that provides social and emotional support to people who have been impacted by cancer. CSC Pasadena is a part of a global nonprofit network of 175 locations, including CSC and Gilda's Club affiliates, hospitals and clinic partnerships, and satellite locations. The mission of the cancer support community is dedicated to ensuring that all people impacted by cancer are empowered by knowledge, strengthened by action, and sustained by community. Previously, Miranda was the affiliate data coordinator for Cancer Support Community's Washington, D.C. headquarters. In her role, Miranda assisted affiliates and healthcare partners with data collection and prepared key performance indicator reports that demonstrated the reach and impact that CSC has on people who are facing a cancer diagnosis. She also supports the needs of CSC's network through database management, internal website support, annual leadership conferences, and general customer service support. Recently, Miranda relocated to Southern California, where she is originally from. In her free time, Miranda loves to run. She ran on the cross country team for all 4 years at Gettysburg. Now, let's welcome our four lovely panelists. If you can all share a little bit about yourself that wasn't on your official bio. And I guess we'll go by like the name, the way that I named it. So we can start with Alendi.
Hi, everyone. So I think a lot of it is in my bio, but a lot of my work that I've been doing is with college access and higher education. So being a first generation, especially in New York City, right, access has not been always there for or equal to everyone. So New York City has pushed a big initiative with College Access for All, which we just lost funding due to COVID-19. But part of my work in my organization is that we place a director of college counseling in the schools to help through the college process. So it means that we are preparing students from 9th grade all the way through 12th grade. And my passion for education kind of came from Gettysburg when I was working with the Center for Public Education with the Migrant Education Program. So with that, I haven't kind of deviated from education, and I've been doing a lot of this work, bringing people up to Albany, a lot of my students, and building that advocacy, because I think part of it is that we are helping you through this process, but also there's other components that are impacting your life, and one of them is our policies, because that's where most of the money comes from.
Okay, thank you. So next up is Gabby.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. This is actually such a cool thing to be a part of. So I was I was actually telling Alendi, I was like, hey, I think my bio was really short. But so let me just tell you a little bit more about me. I was born in Ecuador, and I grew up in New York City in Queens. And I went to Gettysburg from 2007 to 2011. And then after that, I went automatically to seminary. In 2014, I finished seminary school. I went to Princeton Theological Seminary, and I got my divinity degree. Right after that, I moved to Virginia from New Jersey to New York to Virginia. I moved to Virginia, which is where I met my spouse. I have a wife who's active duty military. So ever since Virginia, we've been moving to Germany. I was in Germany for 4 years. We lived there. And then after Germany, now we're in Texas. So yeah, so all of that to say, as far as my career, being a military spouse has a lot to do with just moving around. So while I was in Germany, I was a test control officer for the military folks there. So what I did was mostly I administer these military exams, and I was the person to make sure that everything was getting done correctly. That was actually one of my 2 jobs that I had while I was in Germany. The other job that I had was working with children. I've always had a passion to just work with children, being able to guide them, being able to mentor them. I have a lot of patience. So I really, really enjoy just being able to work with the military children on base. And so yeah, that's just a little bit about me. The time that I had at Gettysburg, how it has shaped me till now. I think it's definitely empowered me, knowing that ever since I left Gettysburg, somebody once told me, even before I started, during my my overnight visit, somebody told me, once you get admitted here, it's not so much whether or not you can do the work, it's will you do it. And so ever since that has stuck with me throughout the years that came forward, right? So it's not so much about questioning myself and my capability, it's about whether or not I'm going to do it. And I will always be grateful for that person who said that to me, because ever since then I've been empowered to know that I can do whatever I set my mind to, even though it has its challenges. every job that I've had since I graduated Gettysburg, every job has challenged me in different ways, getting me out of my comfort zone, which is why I'm so grateful for Gettysburg, because Gettysburg was a huge culture shock for me. I don't know if I'm getting into other questions, but it all ties in together. Gettysburg was a huge culture shock for me, being from New York City, being born in Ecuador. So that experience has definitely gotten me out of my comfort zone and just has molded me to being comfortable in my skin and knowing that my voice needs to be heard. So, yep, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. Next up is Jill.
Hi everyone, super happy to be here. I graduated Gettysburg the same year as Alendi in 2010. A little bit about me, I was born in Bogota, Colombia. I am adopted. So I grew up here in a small little bubble of a town in New Jersey that no one has ever heard of. And people only know it by its relation to Princeton University. It's half an hour away. And I was raised by two wonderful, wonderful people, career military veterans. And let's see, what else was not in my bio? Oh yes, fun fact, I chose Gettysburg because of my dream of becoming an immigration attorney. However, senior year, I found myself rejected from every single law school I applied to. So I took 2 years off, went and worked like crazy, went to paralegal school, and eventually started CUNY Law in 2012. So it's hard to believe that I will be 5 years practicing as an attorney this December. I have spent 4 of those years fighting for the LGBT immigrant community in New York City. And now in private practice in New Jersey, I work with, wow, we work with all types of people. We work with a lot of military families. We work with a lot of youth, doing a lot of special immigrant juvenile status applications, and getting a little bit into family law as well. So yeah, I guess that's something about me that was not in my bio. So.
Thank you so much. And lastly, we have Miranda.
Thank you. As Gabby was saying, thank you to all of you for having us on this panel. It's a really amazing opportunity to be a part of this. So in terms of things that weren't in my bio, also, like Alendi was saying, I think most of about me is in my bio, but I graduated from Gettysburg in 2015. I majored in art history and English, and I'm not really doing anything related to those. I work at Cancer Support Community Pasadena, and I got into this field way after I graduated. I was born in Anaheim, California. I'm Hispanic on my mom's side. Yeah, so anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it about me. So thank you.
Okay, so I think we can go to the next question, because I feel like we know a little bit about your current positions. Unless there's anything you want to add to that, feel free to do so now. I think that's okay. So we can go on to the next question. So what do you think about your time at Gettysburg? Did it inform your current work? Why or why not? So we can start with Alendi.
Definitely it informed all the work that I do now, especially because being the first person in my family attending college, right? And I was lucky enough that I had a college counselor who supported me through the process and gave me options, gave me all private school options, which was something that I didn't think about. It was like financially doable till come March of the college process. And I'm like, I have to apply to local colleges in my city because I don't think I can afford it. But I was lucky enough to get into Gettysburg, and I had gone to the campus, but I was in love with it, because for me it was just like, where am I? I'm in the middle of nowhere. But upon deciding to attend and getting there, I realized that there was a large migrant community, especially Mexican community in Gettysburg. And so that kind of made my experience what it is now, because I got involved in the community. And for me, that was kind of like a home away from home, because I found people of similar backgrounds, similar culture, and a way to connect. And so I started working for the Center for Global CPS. And so I was the program coordinator for the migrant education program after school. I began to organize in terms of like the after school program, but also like a weekend so they can come and spend the weekend with a student. We did a whole bunch of activities on campus. And so getting involved and knowing that there was power in what I've done and what I could do, right? Because I have access to things that maybe a lot of my peers didn't have access, because I speak the language, because I have that citizenship. And so all these things kind of like gave me the drive to do the work that I'm doing currently. And I will continue to do.
Thank you so much. Next, Gabby.
Okay. By the way, Alendi I've known her ever since I started Gettysburg. She's actually the person who hosted me during my overnight visit. And I'm so grateful that Gettysburg brought us together, because she is definitely like a sister to me. So I'm really grateful about that. Okay, so my time at Gettysburg and whether or not it has to do with my current career that I have right now. So my time at Gettysburg, the first thing that I fell in love with Gettysburg was the campus. Even though it was in the middle of nowhere, just that drive from New York City, Manhattan, all the way to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, it was definitely like, oh my God, where am I? But once I got to campus, I completely fell in love with campus. It felt right. It felt like this is actually where I'm supposed to be. And of course, the cost was a big thing for me. So I was just like, please, I hope that I get in, and I hope that I have enough financial aid to be able to attend here. I was a women's studies major while I was in Gettysburg, and right now I'm in financial aid. So you can put 2 and 2 together, like that has nothing to do with women's studies and financial aid. But sometimes life is like that, right? You could plan it out so carefully and dedicate so much time to how you want to do your 4 years there and what you want to major in. And then life is like, no, I'm going to put you right here, completely out of your comfort zone, completely out of what you study. And so for me, my time at Gettysburg, I feel like even though it didn't prepare me to working with, as a women's studies major, it didn't prepare me to like be in financial aid right now. It did prepare me on a personal level, on academic, as far as like being able to, how do I want to say this? Being able to know that I'm able to do this job just as much as if I wanted to go into social work, which has been my dream as well. We'll get into that a little bit later, but yeah, I think Gettysburg prepared me more so on a spiritual, personal level to just, hey, get out of your comfort zone as much as you can. Because you just don't know what life has ahead. And right now in financial aid, being in higher education, I never thought I would be working in higher ed. But somehow I'm really, really liking it. And now I wish I can go back to my Gettysburg years and tell my younger self, like, hey, you might want to do this way. But I'm still grateful, because now I can guide the students that I'm working with now with what financial decisions works best for them, or what kind of classes, whether or not it's something that they are requiring them to take, or it's something that they really want to, you know, just take in their free time, just being able to guide students a little bit better. So yeah, I don't know if I answered that question really, really good, but I was a women's studies major in Gettysburg. Then I went to get my divinity degree, and that has nothing to do with financial aid. But I'm okay with that.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Jill.
So I have the pleasure of using what I learned in my major on a weekly basis to help my clients. I chose Gettysburg because of its really robust Latin American studies program. I knew from the age of 15 that I wanted to be an immigration lawyer working primarily with the Latinx community. Especially, I can credit professors like Emilio Betances. I don't know if he's still there, but his emphasis on social movements in addition to just teaching political history has really informed the way that I present my clients' cases before immigration agencies. For example, I'll just give a quick example. I have a client who is ethnically indigenous. He is from the Quiche province and he's ethnically Mayan. He is from one particular town where, in Guatemala, where the military took over during the Civil War, and there was a recent discovery of a mass grave. We're appearing before family court next month, arguing that it's in his best interest that he should be put in the custody here of his uncle. My boss said, you don't really need to argue about anything about the Civil War. That goes really far back. It's usually good enough to say that Guatemala has a lot of insecurity and so don't send him back. But I remembered all of the countries and situations we studied in Emilio's classes regarding long-standing, decades-long consequences of populations like the Maya who were targeted in ethnic cleansing in Central America. And I found articles, and I kept searching, and I found articles recently as 6 months ago, saying that Mayan indigenous activists are still being targeted in Guatemala. We were able to then add that to his case because one of those activists that was murdered was actually a distant family member of his. So, you know, that the entire framing of how I had constructed my major was to be able to study not only, you know, who was president when in Latin America, as is sort of the, I guess, the skeletal outline of Latin, like studying the region as a whole, but also studying the rise and fall of certain social movements. I did my capstone presentation on the FARC in Colombia. I now represent 10 clients fleeing residual consequences of the armed conflict in Colombia. And I'm better able to do so because I understand the historical footprints of the reality today in the regions in question. So it is fantastically informed my career and the depth really of advocacy that I'm able to put forth on behalf of my clients. So I was really, really fortunate in that matter.
Thank you so much for that. Miranda?
Thank you. So I don't know that my time at Gettysburg really informed the current work that I do, but I have definitely been doing a lot of reflecting on the fact that when I was at Gettysburg, I don't know that there was really a direct resource for social and emotional support if someone you knew was diagnosed with cancer or a loved one was facing a diagnosis. Cancer Support Community has a hospital partner that's in Gettysburg. It's called Gettysburg Cancer Center. So in that reflecting, I've been thinking about what I would have done, had I needed a resource. So I would say that I've just been doing a lot of reflecting about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So here at the college, we like to talk a lot about like intersecting identities and like intersectionality. So how do you all think that your intersecting identities kind of informed and helped you with your work? So we'll start again with Alendi.
Um, so I identify, I mean, I'm first generation Mexican American born in the US. My parents immigrated from Mexico. So for me, that was something that I kind of had a disconnect with growing up, because I mean, I was Mexican, but I grew up in a community that was majority Puerto Rican, Puerto Rican and Black. And so my parents kind of made our world the education and sort of assimilating into this kind of Western world. And it wasn't until I attended Gettysburg when I got the chance to study abroad that I actually got to go to Cuernavaca, Mexico, where it was the first time that I actually got to see my own history, and know what it was about, celebrate like El Dia de los Muertos, what it meant, because we never had an altar in my house. And coming back from studying abroad, we started that tradition that every year we'll have an altar and the reason why we do it, right? And so a big part of that for me plays out in my work, because what I try to do with my students a lot, again, I work with a lot of Dominican, Black, my kids from like West Africa, and I try to kind of tell them like, part of you is knowing your history and knowing who you are. And that's really important, right? You don't want to disconnect from that. And sometimes I get it that, right, it's hard to know your own history. But that plays out a part of me. And this is why it pushed me to even be a Latin American studies major, because I wanted to know more about Latin America. I wanted to know more about the history, because in high school, we learned about, the US history, civil wars. Yeah, there was a snippet about like Mexican American movement in my textbook, but what did that mean? Because I'm not from the West Coast, I'm from the East Coast, and I am really not Chicana because I don't know that, right? So a lot of that, my identity, being a woman, right, first and foremost, because in most of Latin America, right, there's a whole idea of machista. But I grew up, I'm happy that I grew up in a home where my father wasn't like that. My father pushed us to do even more. Always use our voice, don't count on any man to do anything, have your own money. So that for me kind of gave me a different perspective as well. But even when I work with my kids, I always encounter that, right? Because we have the mom or dad saying like, no, my daughter can't go, no se puede ir, they gotta stay, they gotta help me. And so it's that dialogue of how we're gonna bridge that gap, or like have them come into like a compromise, and like how can we help your family as a whole. And so all those different dynamics have come into play they always are a part of me, right? And they always play in my line of work. And I'm always thinking about them. It's not something that when someone sees me, you see I'm a brown person, I'm a person of color. So there's nothing of like denying who I am.
Yeah, so let's see. A little bit like Alendi, the only difference is that, well, I was born in Ecuador. I moved to New York City when I was 7 years old. We lived in Corona, Queens. It was mostly, at that time, it was mostly Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and Mexicans as well. So, I grew up in a very, I would say, not so much conservative home. I don't know if you guys heard, but I do have a wife. So that whole identity, part of my identity, I had to keep to myself for a very long time, up until I was just like, you know what? Nope. I need to be me, and I need to accept who I am. And I cannot keep hiding that part of me. So when I was 25, I came out. So family took it okay. You know, there's still some siblings who are not very accepting, but it's okay. Everybody's in their own journey. But as long as my dad accepted me, that's all that mattered. So yeah, so Ecuadorian, grew up in New York City, went to Gettysburg. I'm also gay. Yeah, it's I speak Spanish, which has helped me a lot as well, because right now at working in higher education and financial aid, a lot of the students that go to McMurray University are first generation students. I was the first one in my family to go to college as well. So that was a big thing. And I'm able to, you know, let these students know, like, hey, I was first generation student as well. And a lot of the students that come here are Mexican American. A lot of the parents don't speak English. So I'm able to explain to them, as the loan coordinator, I'm able to explain to them what they're getting themselves into as far as their sons or daughters' student loans and their Parent Plus loans in case they need to take those out as well. So I'm really grateful that I am bilingual. That's helped me a lot. And as far as this Abilene, Texas, it's a very conservative town. Nothing like I've ever experienced before. Sometimes I reflect on like whether or not Gettysburg was my culture shock. No, Abilene, Texas was the biggest culture shock I have ever experienced. Even though I see people of color, they you know, whenever I speak Spanish to them, they're just like looking at me like, what are you doing? So that has been a huge culture shock of like seeing Latinos, and I know that they speak Spanish, but then when I say something, they just completely shut down. So I don't know. I think it's just a defense mechanism. I'm not sure. This is the first time I've been to Texas. So yeah, that's been a new experience for me. But for those parents, the parents of student parents who are from Dallas, right? I don't know if it's different in Dallas or if it's different in San Antonio. I'm pretty sure it is, because Abilene's a whole different story. But yeah, Abilene, the first thing that I said when I was being interviewed for this job was, hey, just so that everybody knows, please don't ask me what my husband does. I have a wife, she's in the military, that's that. Because I just wanted to make sure that, one, because it is a conservative town, that they weren't gonna tell me, hey, you can't work here, because there's actually 2 schools here that are very, very conservative. And I was afraid to apply there as a gay woman. Yeah. So I automatically told them like, hey, this is who I am. If you have a problem with me, then this is not the place I need to be in. But yeah, that's pretty much as far as like identities go. That's what I have to say for now.
So I guess I have 2 principal identities that really inform a large part of my daily work. The first one is as a military family member. We do help a large population of veterans and active duty through our office. And I'm really able to truly empathize with spouses who are going through trying their very, very best to help either their spouse or their co-parent, the other parent of their children, through return from deployment, but who are really, really struggling and just are coming to our office to talk about their legal rights. My father is a Vietnam veteran. He struggled his whole life with with mental health issues. He was never diagnosed, but he was, you know, I saw him as a child just turn to very unhealthy coping mechanisms. And so I know how to walk my clients through that. And I know what they're feeling. So that is a major part of what I do every day. Also, you know, as I said, for 4 years, I worked with the LGBTI community in New York. I am openly bisexual, and I can, you know, really talk with them about, yes, I know exactly what you're going through. I know exactly what you know, telling your family about this, you know, about coming out to your family is like, you know, what it is to face discrimination. And you know, we can really talk with like about how to best navigate these issues now that they're here in the US. I am bilingual. That always helps. Speaking the language every day for like 10 hours a day for 4 years tends to do that, even though I did not grow up speaking it. And so that is really just, those two identities have principally helped me connect on a much deeper level with my clients. So.
And then in terms of intersecting identities, I am both white and Mexican American. My mom's grandfather was from Michoacan in Mexico. But I do feel very removed from that because I don't look Hispanic. So I would say that that's kind of what my thoughts are on my intersecting identities. In terms of how they inform my work, I'm extremely passionate about more representation for underserved communities, people of color, minority communities, in the same way that when someone is diagnosed with a rare type of cancer and they Google more information on that type of cancer or the survival rate, and they don't see much when they look these things up, or they don't, you know, feel themselves like represented in what they're researching. That's how people from minority communities feel when they look up resources for people with cancer. So I'm very passionate about increasing representation for those communities.
Thank you all so much. Each one was like interesting and different, and I think that was really nice to hear. And so our last kind of like question before we open it up is, how did you determine your educational endeavors after Gettysburg?
So I will say that I had no clue what to do upon graduating. So that's why I took the job in Mexico. And I was the RATA for a study abroad program, the same program that I studied abroad with. At some point I was like, oh, maybe I'll do higher education and higher education administration, or maybe, you know what, I'll do social work, or maybe I'll do development. So I had no clue what to do. It took me 8 years. So I went back to school in 2018. And I decided social work had always been something in my list. Just for me, it wasn't something that I wanted to do the typical social work where I was, you know, working with clients, doing that whole process, kind of like therapeutical work. So I found a program. Lucky enough, it was the only school I applied to, CUNY, Hunter College, School of Social Work. They affordable, which is the great thing, affordability counts. And they had organizational management and leadership. So basically what it is combining an MSW with an MPA. So I learned everything about administrative work, carrying budget, policies. So all that in the mix in between the social work. And so for me, that was something that I want to continue to do nonprofit work, but I want to do it in a way that I'm behind the scenes and I'm taking care of the administrative side versus the direct service. Direct service is wonderful. I love it, but I'm going to be honest, there tends to be times that you burn out because there's so much talking and like dealing with so many issues that sometimes I carry the work home. And even when working with my students, right, there's trauma involved, especially now that I'm going to start working with my kids based on COVID, and all these things that are popping up. And so for me, my next step in life, hopefully, is finding a position where I'm kind of behind the scenes versus doing the direct service, and using my master's, my MSW will help me in that. So it was different, right? Trying to find that journey where I wanted to end up. And my biggest advice for all current students is to definitely use your career services and use the people on campus, your mentors. I know I work with a Professora Valiela all the time.
Services. I'm gonna second you on that, Alendi.
Yeah. I think that's a very useful thing because you're using your network, right? And I think that's something for me as a first generation, I didn't really know how to navigate or use. But now that I'm older, I'm like, oh yeah, we got to connect. I got to take your email. I'll send you an email just because it helps. It helps.
And I love that you mentioned Professor Valiela, because she is actually joined us. So it was so cool to see her name. I was like, okay, so after Gettysburg, I did have a plan to go to seminary school. And the reason why I decided seminary was next was because during my senior year, I was definitely embracing that part of my identity of, yes, I am gay. And I struggled a lot with my upbringing and everything that I was taught when it came to religion. So, and then talking to mentors who also went to seminary after college, it was just a done deal for me. I was just like, okay, seminary is definitely going to be my next step, because I've always felt that I've been wanting to learn more about the church and more about God, and seminary is going to help me to do that. Of course, it was a whole different experience, not just the academic side, but personally and spiritually, I was able to fully accept who I was and no longer doubt that what I was taught, that, God loves us, loves the sinner, hates the sin. No, that's all bullshit. With all due respect. But seminary allowed me to just embrace who I truly was meant to be. And I'm grateful, because it was during my senior year at Gettysburg that I was really struggling. Like, okay, this is what I was taught as a little girl. My mom was Pentecostal, my dad was Catholic, and I just struggled with the religion aspect of it. So even though I'm not using my master's in divinity currently, my plan is to actually, Lord willing, be a chaplain, either at a hospital or in the military as well. I'm not sure, what's coming next, but right now I can't. I have to get ordained, and I have to at least work at a church for 2 years to be able to do that. And because it's Abilene, and even though it's Bible Town, they don't have the denomination that I went to get ordained in. So it'll have to wait. But my other plan is to be able to go back to school and either get a master's in social work or a master's in counseling. I've always been a hands-on person. I've always wanted to give back to the community. I've always wanted to be a guidance for women and children, and men as well. I'm not gonna just say no men, no. But my passion is working with single parents, men and women, and children that have suffered trauma. So in that aspect, I am grateful for my master's in divinity, because I took classes and, with pastoral care classes that has helped me become a better mentor and counselor as well. So yeah.
So, friends, the 2 years after I graduated Gettysburg, I'm gonna be real honest with you, were like some of the darkest of my life, because I had this whole dream of I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'm gonna be a lawyer. And I watched it crash and burn my senior year when I was rejected everywhere and basically felt like I had no other options. I don't know that, I mean, I'll echo what Alendi said that, you know, while I was at Gettysburg, I really did not use career services and think about internships as much as I wanted to, because I sort of felt like, you know, I as I was at that point, right, I knew nothing about the law yet. And so I said, you know, what do I have to offer to get hired at, you know, as an intern at a law firm, or even like a small office. You know, 10 years later, I can tell myself that what I had to offer was free time for, you know, all of the administrative tasks that go into running an office, but I did not know that yet then. So, you know, my parents were career military. They did not really know a ton about college. So they really couldn't guide me much better. I scored very poorly on the LSAT, which is why, if anyone's thinking about it, why I got rejected everywhere. My mother, bless her heart, was in such a good, from a good place, says to me my senior year, well, you know, the SAT doesn't matter anymore getting into college, so maybe the LSAT doesn't matter all that much anyway. So go ahead and apply, Jill. So I did, and that did not turn out well, but I was very, very blessed to meet a mentor the year I graduated at Gettysburg, who is a solo practitioner here in New Jersey, hired me as a paralegal and basically gave me my foundation in the legal profession, gave me the, more important than I guess the faith in knowing that I could do it, he gave me sort of a model of knowing that the legal profession was fulfilling and worthwhile to pursue. When he was 65, I think, when he hired me, and at 65, he was still very excited to go to work every day, and very, like, just, you know, brimming with this passion to help his clients, and it was infectious. So I kind of sort of steeled my resolve, as it were, to pursue law, and reapplied and really focused on building my network, getting to know more attorneys those 2 years, and was able to have much more effective references, along with a slightly higher LSAT score that that got me into CUNY. So in terms of, I guess, my plans, I did always have a vision of making legal services both sustainable and accessible to those that cannot afford to pay regular attorney's fees. Still working out on how that would, I guess, play out logistically, but hoping to make some progress to found what would be the first of its kind of a project in New Jersey, where I would open like a non-for-profit branch for a law firm to both serve clients who can pay and clients who cannot. So that's about like a 10-year, you know, pre-40 vision, but that's really what my plans are for the future.
So I have not gone to grad school, but I would say that in my field, a lot of people who have gone to grad school have pursued masters in health administration, social work degrees. A lot of people I've worked with are nurses or were nurses, or they have a social work degree that's focused in oncology and cancer. So I would say that I am interested and open to all of those things, but I would also say that I didn't really know when I was at Gettysburg whether I wanted to go to grad school or what specific areas I was interested in. So I heard a lot of people on the panel mention how important it is to access the Career Center and make use of their services, and also to keep in mind how much internships can really help you determine what you might like to study later on. I definitely would not have been interested in these master's programs were it not for my intern work at the nonprofit that I worked at, and what I've done since then. And then also, I would say definitely try and find paid internships, because you are worth it and they're out there.
Thank you, everyone, so much. I think that's the last of our official questions. So now we're gonna open it to any questions that anybody else might have. I want to start it off. This is my favorite question to ask every Gettysburg alumni that I've ever met. What is the one thing you missed about Gettysburg?
Servo cookies. It's something so simple, but I love the cookies. So every time we take our kids for an overnight or the summer, I'm kind of like sneaking a cookie or two to take back with me, because I love the cookies. Honestly, I mean, there's so much more to miss, but cookies are number one from my list.
Are we going in order? I have to think about this one. Yeah, you can get back to me.
Okay.
I would probably say that I have two things that I really miss. I ran on the cross country team at Gettysburg, and I absolutely loved just all of the trails around Gettysburg. Everything from directly around the campus to if you were just running miles and miles away from the campus. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And then I also really miss the blue and gray and Yings and Wings on Thursdays. So.
Just a little thing. They no longer have Wing Wednesday.
Really?
Yeah. That used to be like my thing my last 2 years, but they kind of stopped doing it. I think because since everybody had to close down for a bit, they kind of decided to now keep everything regular price every day of the week.
Oh wow. Interesting.
We actually never had that when I was a student there. I don't know, Alendi, Jill, do you guys remember having Wing Wednesday? Yeah. But I thought about one thing that I miss is I do miss walking around campus. Actually, two things. And I miss the midnight servo. What do you call those again? I forgot the name.
Midnight Madness?
Yeah.
I think I'll miss the solitude of walking around the battlefields. I always just felt like whatever was going on in my life at the time, with all the madness and crazy college schedules and endless meetings and such, you could really just get away from everything, and just for the time you were walking, nothing else mattered. And I really just felt like I could tune out the rest of the world and just be one with myself. I know that sounds kind of super cheesy, but I just don't have a place anymore that provides that type of solitude and peace. That and Thanksgiving dinners, because I really felt like it was pretty cool that the whole campus came together, and it was just such a great atmosphere. So
Okay, so that's why I love asking that question, just because it's you always hear something different from everybody. And I'm sad that you didn't get 50-cent wings on Wednesday. Those are the one things that I missed, even though I'm still here. So now we can open it up to the rest of the group if anyone has any questions. If that's it for questions, if nobody has any questions, I think we can end it here. Thank you all again for coming. This was great. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. I loved hosting this event. Thank you again to our 4 panelists for joining us. I know you all probably have busy schedules and different time zones. So thank you so much.